So the other thing that we want to talk about 2024 is regarding the stock market. And so we just wanted to show some perspective on historically how the stock market has performed during presidential election years. And it's kind of like how we talked about earlier, just because something's happened in the past doesn't mean that's how it's going to be this year, but also the past can provide us a little bit of perspective on how things have been and how they might be. And we talked about this also during a couple of years ago during the midterm election year. And what we had found when we looked at the performance of the stock market, we're measuring that by the performance of the S&P 500 during midterm election years, is that actually midterm election years are the most volatile and the most poor performing year of a presidential cycle. It's usually that midterm election year, which is surprising because you would think the presidential election year would be much worse because there's so much more uncertainty about policy and things like that. But it's actually the midterm election year that usually performs the worst across the entire 4 years of a president's term. So let's look at what has happened in the past.
But if I can interrupt, it just kind of goes to show you that there's so many things that affect stock prices and company values and that sort of thing, not including, but way beyond politics and what's going on that way. So go ahead.
So, oops. So this chart shows the S&P 500 market returns between elections. So what this is measuring, the years that this is measuring November to November during these years. And so year one post-election, the average annual return during that year of the stock market is 8.3%, stock market S&P 500. In year two, that midterm election year that we just talked about is 3.4%. The post-midterm year that we just got done with in 2023 is the highest performing year typically during a presidential term, and that's on average 14.7%. And the presidential election year, year four that we're going into right now, is 9.1%. And just so you're aware, the average long-term annual return of the S&P 500 is somewhere around 9% overall.